All right, good morning, everyone. How are we today? I love it. My name is Stevie Dawn. I am the executive director at the Fleetwood Project down in Mansfield, and I am so excited to be able to moderate this panel. I hope you guys have your notebooks. We are going to learn a lot today, I can tell. First, I just want to introduce everybody who's sitting next to me. The wonderful Whitney McLean from the Art Station. Absolutely. She is a licensed professional counselor supervisor and a board-certified art therapist. Then we have, next in line is Gianina Casale, I'm going to get that right. Casale, who is a registered dance movement therapist and a registered yoga teacher. And then on the end, we have Heather Macchietto, who is director of the Senior Day program at James L. West, a board-certified music therapist is how she started her career. So we have music, art, and movement all up here and represented. And so we're very excited to jump right in to talking about how the arts and mental health come together. So first question for Whitney. How do you adapt your approach to accommodate clients with diverse backgrounds and different mental health needs?
I'm going to wait. Closer?
There we go.
There. Okay. So it's a big question that really informs so much of what we do in our practice of art therapy. Adaptation and flexibility are essential, especially for being able to meet people where they're at. And so a lot of our clients, I'll start on the mental health needs end and we'll work back to cultural considerations. But a lot of our clients that we see throughout the week have a range of needs, not just depression and anxiety, but there's a lot of trauma that we encounter that are feeding those symptoms. There's other issues related to psychosis or attachment trauma, different kinds of wounding that we don't necessarily see on the surface. And so the expressive therapies continuum is a theoretical foundation that belies the work that we do across the spectrum in expressive arts. It informs the way that we use art materials, whether they're fluid and flowing and messy or rigid and controlled, or our process is structured or unstructured. We utilize that to help us be able to guide our clients in the way that they shift into different parts of their brain and brain functioning. Because in trauma, sometimes parts of our brain are shut down or we're cut off from emotions or the ability to verbalize. And so the kinds of materials that we use and the way that they connect with our body and stimulate our brain function can help us to make progress towards their therapeutic goals, which is really fascinating. And I spend a semester teaching grad students about this. Cultural considerations include things like, again, we want to understand the materials that we're using and the process or the products that we're endeavoring to create with clients. Some of my clients have severe physical disabilities, and so their grasp function is different than mine. And so, of course, I have to adapt the materials to empower them and give them a greater sense of self-efficacy in their creative process. I might have to adjust it for their line of sight if their vision is not the same as mine. I have, again, we have clients who come from different cultural backgrounds, who identify with different genders or sexual orientation, maybe who are veterans, you name it, the cultural considerations are there. And so a lot of it is about understanding the way that the materials can affect us, can overstimulate, overwhelm, or that we might connect and we might relate well to a certain kind of material or art process. And so, so those things are important. And as a therapist, I have to be aware of like what can be harmful, but aware of what can help create safety and allow the client to guide me and inform me of things. And that's through the way I observe them and their interaction, but also maybe what they're able to tell me. Do I have an extra second?
Go for it.
A really kind of curious story was working at the Union Gospel Mission and a group of folks who were in transitional housing, and we were processing grief. It was a grief group, and we began working with tactile media like fabric, something that's familiar and relevant to all of us. And we were repurposing fabric, and so using it in a creative way. And wrap dolls don't involve a lot of cutting or a lot of real know-how. Because it's really just about wrapping and wrapping and wrapping the fabric to give it form and strength. And what was interesting was, though our intention was to plant seeds within the doll, seeds of hope and affirmation, what we heard from the staff at the UGM and then later from some of our residents was that some of the folks were talking about them like maybe they were representative of voodoo doll, which is something that like hadn't occurred to me, right? But was relevant to some of our participants culturally. And so it was a really great learning opportunity. We find there are no mistakes in art. Sometimes, we do make mistakes in therapy because we're human. But we like invite the conversation and continue to grow through that and keep learning.
That's awesome. Incredible. Great story. Gianina, what specific art techniques do you find most effective in facilitating specifically healing and self-expression in your clients?
So I'm going to be speaking from a dance movement therapy perspective. So dance therapy kind of lives in between creative arts therapies and somatic therapy. So it's a blend of both. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. That's the lens I'll be speaking from. And before I talk about it from an embodied place, I'm wondering if y'all are open to doing a brief an embodied experiential to see what it is that I'll talk about, because then you'll have experienced it. And that's what dance movement therapy is about. Are y'all open to that? I see some nods.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Okay,
yes,
I'll
yes,
be brief
everybody.
because we've been told we have like 2 to 3 minutes per question. But I'll invite you to close your eyes if that feels safe. And if that doesn't feel safe, see if you can just lower your gaze and look at something kind of below you and in front of you. I invite you to find your support, whatever it is you're sitting on. Most of us are on a chair, some of us are standing. So feel that support underneath you, whether it's the floor from underneath you or that chair that you're on. Now I invite you to tune into that breath, your inhales and your exhales, and see if with each exhale you can give in to this support just a little bit more. Feeling the rising and the lowering of that breath as it moves through you. And with each exhale, just letting go a little more. Notice what it feels like to be supported in this time. Not having to hold all of it yourself, but really be held as much as feels possible in this moment. And it's okay if it's letting go all the way is not there right now. That's okay too. Notice any sensations in your body. Notice any specific body part where you're feeling those sensations. See if you can, if anything arises, we're not trying to make anything, but if a sensation descriptor comes up, like shaky or relaxed, or colors come up, or shapes or textures, maybe an image. And once you feel like you have that, word or image or color, I invite you to slowly and gently start to blink your eyes open, letting your nervous system readjust to the lights in this room, to this space, to one another. And if we had more time, I would ask you to turn to the person next to you and share that, because there's really a lot of power in being seen and being heard and inviting someone else into that internal landscape that you just experienced. So I think I'm just going to finish there, but one of my favorite techniques is to do that, to slow down, to go inward, and to listen to the body's innate wisdom, because we spend a lot of times in our minds, and our minds gets a lot of our attention. So giving the body space.
I just feel more relaxed. Is that okay? I don't know if anybody else felt that, but I just felt, wow, I just took a really deep breath. So thank you for that. That was beautiful. Heather, you use music therapy with dementia and Alzheimer's patients. How do you measure the effectiveness of art therapy on mental health outcomes, and are there specific metrics that you can rely on?
So for people who are living with dementia, one of the challenges that they face is short attention span, not being able to pay attention for long periods of time, getting up, moving around, not being able to necessarily express the way they're feeling as we might. And so we may have participants in our program who will just call out, who will, just ask for help, who will get up and move around. They're looking for things. And so one of the ways that music therapy really benefits those folks is it helps with attention span. We have participants who can't sit for more than 5 or 10 minutes to do a discussion group or answer trivia questions or do a puzzle. But when we start doing music therapy interventions, we can have them with us up to an hour. And so a lot of it is through the assessment process and knowing the person, knowing what music is going to work for them. Everybody's different. We're seeing dementia in younger and younger people. So now, Leonard Skinner might just be music therapy of choice for some of our participants. And so utilizing that as the tool and allowing them to express themselves in a way that's meaningful. We have that connection with other people. And so the way we can measure it, and one of the things I think music therapy needs to do better, is to have data, good numerical data that we can show that what we're doing works. Because a lot of times when we're working with people with dementia, I can tell you that it works because I can see it. Because I know somebody who gets up every 5 minutes or is going towards the door and is ready to leave. And when we're doing music therapy, they're sitting for the hour. Or the person that will just kind of nod off and start to fall asleep because their attention isn't being met when the drums come out and the movement, and that person grabs a hold of a mallet and starts playing a drum. I mean, you can't put a number on that, but you can certainly see that response is there. So things like that, participants who, really have trouble getting their words out, getting their thoughts out, but they can do fill in the blanks with songwriting or lyric analysis and being able to express themselves in that way.
That's beautiful. I'm reminded of my father, who lives in Boston, he does a one-man band show for dementia and Alzheimer's homes around his community. And he does a different topic every month. And so March was Irish, so it was all Irish music. And he always comments about how people who would normally, when they come into the room, would nod off or be looking at the exit, once the music starts, they're engaged. And I think that's such a powerful statement for music therapy.
And there's also a really good feeling in the room. For instance, I play the flute. And so one of the things I will do is bring my flute. After lunch is a very chaotic time for some of our folks. Art program, they come for the day. So they're here for the day doing activities and things like that. So their caregiver gets a break. So by lunchtime, they're tired after lunch. Some of them are very tired. Some of them, they don't have the attention span to figure out what to do next. So they are moving around. So I brought my flute and I played for them. And we had this hour of just peace It was such a great feeling.
Yeah, that's amazing. So this is a question for any of you. So whoever would like to jump in, do any of you collaborate with other mental health professionals, and what role do you feel art plays in integrated treatment approaches?
I can speak to that. Currently, like at my work at the art station, we would refer, we spend a lot of time referring clients out to other psychologists or psychiatrists for further evaluation or deeper understanding of things that are going on. In past work, I served as part of a treatment team in a hospital setting as an art therapist. And so it was really valuable to be able to use the art, like the visual expression of the client, of their internal struggle, to help inform the team, because with some support and context of how the art was created or came about, it felt like the other participants in the treatment team, the doctors and the nurses or speech therapists or OT, had a greater depth of understanding of the client's progress, where they were growing, even if gains were small.
Absolutely. Anyone else? Have you done any integrated or worked with other even art therapists of different styles? All of you are different, obviously.
Yeah. So where I did my internship, we did trauma groups for children, and I collaborated with other mental health professionals in facilitating those groups. So I'm actually will be becoming a licensed marriage and family therapist associate shortly. I'm on track for that. So a lot of the other interns that I worked with were LPCs, MFTs, and so in our group there, in our trauma groups, we would incorporate, they were psychoeducation groups because that was the structure at this setting. However, we always incorporated some experiential and then some verbal processing as well. And so I brought in like the dance and movement therapy piece to the experientials based on the themes that we were addressing, the trauma topic that we were addressing that week. So we kind of took turns with the other facilitators and moving people along that process.
Absolutely. And Heather?
I was just going to say that music feels safe. We all have a type of music that we enjoy. So our participants and residents that are living with dementia, they spend so much time at the doctor's office and being tested and retested and determine, what's quote unquote wrong with them. But when it comes to music therapy, we're focusing on what's right and what still works. And so rather than somebody coming in and trying to get them to do physical therapy or something along those lines, we're coming in with music. So right away we get a good rapport that way. So it really helps to connect with the person.
I actually want to say something because that inspired this, but also at the Irving Police Family Advocacy Center, just within the name, there's so much there, right? And so a lot of people are arriving at this space from a crime or from having experienced something that was traumatic. And so with it all existing within the same building, that sometimes could trigger some people as they even stepped into the space. So to bring dance movement therapy, music, joy, laughter into a space like that, it was really special. Yeah. The nervous system, whenever it's in a traumatized state, doesn't really have access to those things, pleasure, joy, laughter. And so to create kind of like a safe container within a space that can sometimes be triggering can be really helpful.
I think we probably all saw that this morning coming into that beautiful music that was playing, and I was here extra early, so I got all the practice runs, and I was feeling really good by the end of that. So I think we can all share in that. Whitney, how can art therapy be used in crisis situations or with clients dealing with severe mental challenges?
Another great big question.
All of yours are great big questions.
All mine are great big, but it's a great question. Just in terms of crisis, the art station doesn't necessarily serve like crisis for crisis purposes, but we do see crisis when our clients come in and they're distraught or overwhelmed. Maybe they're on the verge of a panic attack or recovering from that, or they've had a recent loss. or something critical has changed. And things that the art, like modalities and expression, can invite are grounding. You guys were experiencing that with Gianina's guide through grounding in our seat and connecting to our body that way. The art materials can absolutely invite that because we're engaging our senses and we are grounding in reality. There's a modality, bilateral movement, that I'm sure anyone working in somatics is aware of, but where we engage both sides of our body. Maybe in my work as an art therapist, I would have my client put a crayon in each hand, and I would guide them through a structured process of moving so that it's safe, it's controlled, they're guided, but moving both sides of their body, and in doing so, activating both sides of their brain, activating the parts maybe that have gone offline in response to the crises or the overwhelm. And so bringing everything back online and helping them to return to a calmer state of being. For clients who are, the second part was about.
Oh, yes. So the second part about severe mental health challenges and how does that change the work?
Yeah. And so, again, like reality orientation and grounding. And so when I think of severe mental health challenges, sometimes that might look like disconnection from reality or fragmentation. If we think of things like schizophrenia or psychosis, some can be like long-term and ongoing, and some might be more temporary, related to like a mood disorder or something. And so through use, again, of like grounding art materials and structured processes, even like take it for granted, but like a still life drawing, focusing on what's right here, right in front of me right now, grounding in reality can be a really valuable tool for being able to respond to something like that. Yeah, so that's a soft answer. There's a whole lot more to all of this. But.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Gianina, what long-term benefits have you observed in clients who engage in art therapy, and how do those benefits manifest themselves in daily life and daily experience?
So I think the connection to the body can be a benefit that can be long-term for people. Having self-compassion, having that understanding, being able to, because we're all different, right? We have different bodies, but having that ability to go inward and to understand with non-judgment what's happening internally can be a tool that will help in every area of one's life with mental health, but also generally across the board. And so I would say that's probably the biggest benefit. But then there's also relational piece, because the relational piece, not just within the client and the therapist, but in group settings, for example, with one another, being seen, being validated, being heard, being able to self-express and have someone mirror that back to you. There's an intervention called mirroring and dance movement therapy that we do where we'll face one another and we'll mirror each other's movements. And it can be really a powerful tool, because not only are you connecting with your own self and your own self-expression, but you're also connecting with somebody else's. So I would say those are, in my opinion, some big benefits: connection to self and connection to others.
Absolutely. Again, this question is for anyone. How do you engage with the community to raise awareness about the benefits of art therapy for mental health? Have any of you had success in that area, or an example that you could share?
I'll let somebody else go first.
Okay, this is one of the things I actually feel pretty strongly about when it comes to music therapy. There is a big misunderstanding as to what music therapy really is. And someone who comes to a community and, sings for an hour or plays guitar, that could be therapeutic. It can have therapeutic benefits for the participants that are listening. Music that they enjoy, music that brings back memories. But music therapy, to actually be called music therapy, it's done by a certified professional who went to school to become a music therapist. And so a lot of hospice companies make use of music therapists. A lot of hospice companies make use of volunteers. And they say, oh, we have music therapists coming. And so I got on my soapbox one day and I was like, I looked up this woman who was their music therapist, and she was not a music therapist. And I said, it does a disservice to the profession where people learn assessment and they learn different treatment modalities, and they learn how to make goals and set the goals and see them be achieved through the prescribed use of a medicine of music therapy. And so I think that it's very important that people understand the difference. There's a great benefit, yes, to having someone visit you when you're on hospice and sing you hymns, but the music therapist is going to have the training and the background, the understanding of how what they're doing is really impacting the person.
I love that. It's that idea of music can be therapeutic, but music therapy is therapy. Yeah, I love that. That's beautiful.
And the same goes for art therapy, and I'm certain dance movement. We run into the same thing all the time. And so part of our work at the Art Station is a lot of advocacy for art therapy in the community, reaching out into different community centers like LVT Rise or Crossroads Community over here off Hemphill. And as an art therapist, I've been privileged to serve on the board for Arts Fort Worth, who's opening their mind to, what that, inviting this kind of knowledge into the way that we're reformulating our connection to the arts across the city. Also, there are boards like the North Texas Art Therapy Association that are advocating for our field and greater awareness and training. The Art Station is also really great at that, offering training to other like mental health professionals who have an interest in expressive modalities. And so training them to know how to use the tools like in a safe way, one where they can like learn to anticipate and kind of evaluate outcome in a way like with some guidance from a trained art therapist.
Great. Just in looking at time, I'm going to skip to just the final couple of questions because I'm hoping to hear from all of you. So what emerging trends are you seeing in art therapy that you're excited about, particularly anything regarding mental health treatment? Are there new things coming that we should know about?
I think in general, I'm really excited about the body being incorporated in mental health more now than it has, I think, before. Even though these are practices that have existed forever, have been used by many cultures. But I think that it's because and due to recent evidence that shows that the body, incorporating the body and bottom-up processing, which essentially means starting with the senses, starting with the sensations, calming down the nervous system, and then that clearing the mind, as opposed to the other way around, can be really effective in treating, for example, trauma, because of the way that the brain functions when we are in an activated state, where our precognitive cortex, which is responsible for logical thinking, organization, emotion regulation, it goes offline. And so in those instances, talk can be really hard. Thinking can be really hard. And so there's a lot of different modalities now that are out there: somatic experiencing, EMDR, brain spotting, just to name a few of many that work from a bottom-up processing. And so it's just really exciting now to be in a space where we're speaking more of a common language, and it's really valued. And I still find myself having to advocate for dance movement therapy, but it's widely more accepted, and I'm really excited about the brain science that is emerging and supporting how this work does work.
Absolutely. Somebody else? What emerging trends are you excited about?
I would say mine is 100% in alignment with Gianina's. Very much art therapy is a bottom-up practice, and so that's something we've been working at for a long time. But the integration, this knowledge of like the brain function in response to the nervous system and connecting to the body through our process is so valuable, and it's really cool to see even just on social media, like what is being shared. Um, and so several of our therapists at the art station have EMDR certifications as well. And so just seeing how they're learning to integrate both practices. A dear friend is also a somatic experiencing trained therapist. And so I think this is just a really valuable turn for our field.
What advice would you give to new art therapists entering the field, especially in terms of maximizing impact with clients?
Yeah, I work with a lot of grad students, and so I'm always ready with this answer. I would say, like, do your own work. Like, there's two things, and that's the first one, because we're both human beings sitting in the room. We're all human beings sitting in the room, and so we have our own story and our own backpack full of rocks that we're carrying into the room. And it's really valuable for us as therapists to be in tune and aware of what we are carrying into the space, so that we can be open and receptive and more capable of holding space for our clients. Again, like reinforcing that non-judgment, The second thing that I'm blanking on right now. Oh yeah, was adjusting your expectations. Because as a new clinician, sometimes we get caught up in, like especially in art therapy, we often see a product or a visual like outcome of what our work has been about. But what we know and what we value is very much the process. And that's true in therapy. Like it is about the process, the small gains, the setbacks, the side steps, the mistakes. It's about all of that and growing resilience and practicing that through the process. And so we value both the product and the process. And so a lot of times we have to remember that our client's timeline for healing and growth is not the timeline that we wrote down in our treatment plan, which we have to have for insurance. We have goals, but just especially as somebody starting out, and even somebody who might be entering into your own therapy, it's like just temper your expectations, because you may not be completely ready for the kind of change that you're working towards. Great question.
That's great. Next.
Is that a 5-minute? Okay, we have a 5-minute. I was gonna say the same thing about do your own work, and I'll just say that through the lens of embodiment, and for that connecting to your own body and being in tune with what's coming up for you, and not just being in tune, but trusting and accepting and having that self-compassion rather than that judgment and pushing away or avoiding certain uncomfortable or difficult sensations. Even in the moment with a client, they can come up. And so having been practicing that with yourself, it can be really helpful to hold space for somebody else who you're guiding it to be able to do the same. And then also there's the piece about if those things come up, so that they are not either projected onto the client, or just working within that countertransference piece as well, keeping that, being mindful of that. And so I would say that was my main thing. And then also just something that I found really helpful, because I am at the start of my career, is having a mentor, having a supervision. That's been like a key element, as in addition to the school, in addition to the training and the experience. That has been really important for me. And the reason I'm here is because of my mentor. So
I would say it's important to know your value and not sell yourself short, not sell short the service that you're providing. A lot of times, I think entry level in the field of music therapy, it's, oh, you're the musician. Come here, come entertain everyone. I worked in a nursing home and I was so excited. Excuse me, that they had me as part of the recreation therapy department. I thought, oh, this is going to be great. I'm going to be working. I'm going to have all these goals. I'm going to do all these wonderful things. And when I got there, it was like, no, here's 45 residents and you're going to entertain them for an hour. And well, now we have a child daycare and we want intergenerational programming. It's $19.99. Intergenerational programming is all the rage. So let's add 25 kids to what you're doing. So I was really just kind of entertaining chaos. And so I think it's really important to understand the value that you bring and be able to speak to that, have the data, have the articles. There's scholarly journals out there all over the place. And so I think that's just critical, because I do think, unfortunately, a lot of music therapists, like I did, are transitioning to other careers, still utilizing the music therapy principles a lot in what they do, but transitioning for, reasons of finances, wages, the misunderstanding of the profession. So I think a lot of it ends up being advocating for what you do.
Entertaining chaos will be something I take with me today. Thank you for that nugget of golden wisdom. How many of us feel like we entertain chaos sometimes, right? Yes, hello. This has been remarkable. We are out of time. I would keep asking you questions that are not on the list, but I'm going to stick to the script, which anybody who knows me knows that's very difficult. I think what I really get from everything that you all said is, I think, just the power of this form of therapy, but also the importance of all of us as arts advocates, as Wesley asked us to raise our hand to earlier. All of us as arts advocates, let's advocate for these forms of therapy even more, because I think what we've heard is they're very powerful, but sometimes also misunderstood. And so if we can all do our part in that, I think then we're all bringing that together. So art therapy is a powerful tool in all its forms. And thank you, all three of you, for sharing with us today. And thank all of you for participating and doing the grounding exercise with us. And something that I always close my sessions with, so I'll do it today. Every human has an innate desire to be seen, heard, welcomed, accepted, and loved. I hope you do that for somebody today. Thank you so much for being here.